大家好, welcome to part 2 of our mooncake making. I have all of my ingredients for the dough right here. Very simple. I have my mooncake molds, my Lotus paste that I made yesterday has been chilling, and we will get started. The most important thing you need is a food scale. You want to be very precise with these measurements, and when we go to make the mooncake themselves, you'll see how important this step is. So right now I'm pouring the golden syrup. You can make this yourself, but to save myself time, I am just pouring it in. You use about 60 grams. I have my golden syrup in here. It's all measured out. Then I'm going to use this lye water. Because I'm making 4 batches today, I'm just doing all the dough at once, and I will use 1 teaspoon. All right, the next thing I'm going to measure out is the vegetable oil. So I'm keeping a close eye on everything. And I pour that in slowly. You don't want to get too much oil. All right, I have all of my ingredients here. Now I'm going to just stir them together. It's very thick. They may recommend a whisk in any recipe you may find, but I have my old friend chopsticks here, and I will stir this together before we stir in the flour. Thick, sticking to my chopsticks. That's how you know you're ready to add. This is cake flour. You can buy it at any American grocery store. It's really easy to find. All right, the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to sift the flour right on into our wet mixture. So I have this little fancy sifter. This step is really important. You don't want lumps or clumps or anything in your flour. So you just put it in your sifter. This is actually a sieve. You don't have to go out and buy anything fancy. All right, so now my flour is sifted in. I'm gonna start stirring the wet into the dry, just like this. As I'm stirring, you're gonna see little clumps start to form, just like this. You can see that I have put on gloves at this point. I'm going to knead the dough with my hands. You can wear gloves if you like. I wear gloves for 2 reasons. One is that I'm going to be serving these to friends and family, and also because it's pretty messy on your hands once you start getting in there. You're gonna get to a point where it becomes really tedious trying to do this with chopsticks. So at that point, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to switch over to my hands. I'm making sure that all the dough is incorporated here, making sure all the flour is in from the sides of the pan. I'm turning it over, and I will knead it until it's all in a nice little ball. All right, so I've mixed my dough together. It kind of looks like this little ball. Plastic wrap here. I'm gonna scoop out my dough with the plastic. What I'll do is I'll roll this up in a plastic wrap, and I'm gonna put this into the fridge. It's gonna chill. The recipe calls for about 30 minutes, but because this is so much more dough, I'm gonna put it in there for about an hour. So I have my lotus seed paste from yesterday. Gorgeous. My dough all ready to roll out. I'm going to do about 18 grams of the dough. 38 grams of the lotus seed paste. For a 50-gram mooncake, give or take. So you can see I take a little piece of dough. I just make it perfect until it reads about 18 grams. Then I roll it a little ball and put it on a plate. So my one-eyed pug and my husband, who's making wonton today, has a good tip for making the mooncake. I have some giant mold, and then I have these smaller ones. Definitely recommend the smaller ones. And always have a pug who is willing to help out with the cooking. Once you have your mooncake molds set up, you're gonna need a little bit more flour. Just dust the inside lightly so that your little mooncake doesn't stick. All right, so now it's time to form the mooncake. So I have my dough here. I had to put it in the fridge for a few minutes. If it gets too warm, it gets kind of hard to work with. So no need to get a rolling pin or anything like that. You just want to kind of make a circle in your hand. I'm gonna grab one of my lotus seed paste balls. They did end up being about 33 grams. I probably could have gone a little bit less. So my goal now is to just kind of fold the dough around the lotus paste. So I'm a bit at a time, just working it together, working the dough together, using my hand here to sort of push it, using my fingers. You'll have sort of a ball like this. You're gonna wanna roll it in your hands. Now I have 2 different mooncake molds here. You wanna make sure you use a little bit of flour. I have the same cake flour, but you wanna really make sure that you also push that flour out. You don't want it to be too much on there. So now I'm just gonna gently insert the little ball into my mooncake mold. I'm just pushing it down, making sure, okay, we have all of our dough and filling inside. I set the mold down. I push it firmly. The reason I push it firmly is because I want it to be pretty like that one. Then I slowly depress the plunger. You will need to wiggle your mooncake mold a little bit, and you will have a perfect, cute little mooncake. These pretty mooncakes are ready to go into the oven. I put the oven at 335 degrees because my oven runs hot. I'll put them in for 5 minutes, and they will be good to come out to get some egg wash and go back in for about another 8 to 10 minutes. I'm gonna add a little egg wash after 5 minutes of cooking. Just brush it on with a little brush. If you're making these for people who don't eat eggs, it's okay to omit this step. They just won't be as brown and cute. After adding the egg wash, just put your mooncakes back in for about 10 minutes. Make sure you check them after about 5 so they don't burn. A few minutes after the mooncakes come out, I take them off the baking sheet and put them onto a baking rack to cool down completely. Once cooled, I will put them in an airtight container, and they're gonna sit for about 3 days before I'm ready to give them out to family and friends.